Hello and welcome. Let's talk about statistics, but in particular and that of fantasy football, but the statistics for such. And earlier, a couple days ago, I put out a question. Nobody was able to come up with the answer, but I will come up with. I'll explain it now. Seven numbers, like a lottery, just seven random numbers: one, two, four, three, four, five, six, seven. Basically, it's one in 10 million possibilities of different numbers that can come up. 0 through 9, 10 times over. Or not 10 times over, 7 times over. And I set up these payouts on a 1 unit play. And first ask the question what the exact return on investment for the player is. The correct answer is positive 4%. Which, to come up with this, is pretty easy. Um, First, you have to come up with the likelihood each one is going to win. And for the chances of getting all seven numbers right, we have a 10 million 1 in chance of getting it. There's 10 million combinations, so that's the math on it. Now, what would be the chances of getting the first number right? Now, in itself, 10%. But the chances of winning this prize is not going to happen 1 in 10. Let's do some mathematics. And we use a calculator. So you have a 10% chance of getting that first number right. Okay, so that's 0.1. But in order to get this prize, that means you technically can't get the second number right. Now, that's not what you'd want, but to have that happen, you have a 90% chance of not getting the next number right. So we multiply that by 0.9 and you would have a 0.09 chance of winning that first prize. If we 1x it, that'd be 11 and 1/9 of a chance. Now for each one after this, the math is pretty much the same. So it's an extra zero. So for this one, 0.09, 0.009, 0.0009, and all the way through for each one. Because to get this one right, you got to get the first number right, that's 10 and 1. And then again, that's another 10 and 1 chance to get the second number right, that's 101. And then you got to get the next one wrong for this type of mathematical equation. And that's 90%, 9 and 10, and so on and so forth. And when you add up all the numbers for what the payouts would be, it would be 10,400,000, which equates to 4%. Second question. What are the chances of winning after 100 equal bets? And I'm going to go over this in multiple different ways. It's a positive game, as if that would be the case, but I meant it to be positive to work within this aspect. The answer is 11% that you would be ahead. And even though it's a positive game, if there's not enough sample sizes, and 100 is extremely low compared to 10 million combinations, or 1/100th of the combinations, the math is very high that you'd be losing. If you played a billion times and more, there's almost no chance you would lose as far as the mathematical numbers would be concerned. Now, how you would calculate this to get the exact number, I don't know. But I know how to calculate and be right in that I simulated millions and millions and millions and millions of times to come up with what seemed to me around 11.1, 11.2% of the time that you would be losing. Now, after one situation, the chances you're ahead is 10% because you either got the first number right or you didn't. If you got it right, you win because 2 to 1. And that number after each one, after 1,000 ones, that percentage number would increase higher to that 11%. And it would keep going up to 12, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, all the way till it pretty much gets up to 100%. Now, as far as the showdown, fantasy football, and really all the fantasy games in DraftKings, which is a gambling game, a game where they have the edge over everybody in the mass sum. Now, to have an edge as a player, that means you have to do better to beat the rake that they are taking in. So you have to be so in other words, you have to be much better than the average player. And when you play a game like this, how it works is you put 6 players on your team, one which is captain, and then 5 other ones. Captain's getting 50% more points and costing you 50% more to pay for because everyone has a cost. Better players cost more. And in such, the game is simple as far as how you look at it is, and okay, you're predicting who gets the top points in the next 5 best players after that. Now, last night there was a game, and every night, Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night is when I play. So I'll be playing tonight. 50 Cent was the games that I played. NFL Showdown, $20,000 prize pool, mini-max they called it. There were 47,562 teams. So, when you look at that, they made like under 4,000. So 7,562 of those teams were to rake. 40,000 of them went back into the prize pool. Rake is high. So you have to do really good to win this game. First place was paid $1,500. Second place $750. Third for $500. Fourth for $300. Fifth paid out $200, and then so on and so forth. And there was a whole bunch of miniature prizes below. On the right hand side, I have first place percentage, and then R, which is what I made up, and I'm trying to think of what the R stands for. Well, percentage is 7.5% is what percentage that gets paid for first, and one is how many how many get paid for it. So 1 in 13, 1/13 or 1/13 of the prize pool is for first, and 1/5 of the prize pool goes to the top 10, or 18.1% of it. Because really, 13.3 is 1x of 7.5, and same thing with 5.52 and 18. So to win these games, when close to 20% is in the top 10 with 47,000 people playing, to say hitting those scores is important to be a winner would be an understatement at mass proportions. And the person who won last night did win $1,500 because that person did not share a lineup with another person. In a situation like this, if you don't share a lineup with anybody, you would win $1,500 because you get first. But if you shared it with one person, you get $1,125 for first because you would get half of first place prize, and you would also get 1/2 of second place prize, as would the other person. If you shared it with 2 other people, that means you'd all get the top 3, 1/3 of the top 3, and so on and so forth. Where if there was 250 people with the same lineup and you shared it with 249 people, that first place prize is $25. And when you're talking about 50 cents of a bet, that means you just got 50 times your money back. Was it worth it? I mean, there's going to be times you're going to get subsidiary prizes because in the first example I mentioned where you get 1.5 million or 15% of what the odds would state you actually win for the top prize, yet it's worth it. So if I could win $25 on a 50-cent bet, which is 50 to 1, and if I can win one of 100 times, then maybe I'll get enough subsidiary prizes to win. And if that's the case, okay, maybe. But is it 1 in 100 you'd actually win? Is it higher than that? After I play a game in the NFL, what I do is I export the spreadsheet into the CSV. In the spreadsheet, I'll copy and paste the ownerships, and I'll do all of these steps. And then I'll find out what the ownership of each player is. And this is the original spreadsheet that I would get. It's in a read-only mode. So this is where all the data is. That's where I get it from. And after getting the results into a spreadsheet from those steps that I mentioned, I now know that's that Dak Prescott was owned 7,305 times for that at 15.37%, followed by Ezekiel Elliott at 13%, Carson Wentz at 9, Amari Cooper, or 10, I should be saying, as well at 10% as Amari Cooper. Zach Ertz, Michael Gallup, Alshon Jeffrey, Jordan Howard, and so on and so forth. Defense is 2.7, 2.44% owned. The kickers, he had a good game. Brett Mayer, 1.37%, and I think it's Jake Elliott, 1.14%. The more you know about statistics and probabilities, the better you're going to do. Each player has a different likelihood of winning as captain, but the odds you win the tournament is the following. And it's actually better than that. It's the odds you have the perfect lineup is the way of putting it. Because if no one gets the perfect lineup, then who has the second perfect lineup? And the perfect lineup is the most points that can be allocated within the game that can be allocated within the payment of the costs. So sometimes the fourth or fifth best player may not make the cut because he was too expensive to play. Anyway, so you have the captain. So you have player 1, 2, I don't know why it's percent, but whatever. I'm just going to player 1, 2, 3, 4. What's the chances that the captain has the best game? We can see just by looking at this in here that some players could have a 15, 20, 10, 6, 4, 2% chance. Some are very low. Just because these are the ownership, obviously those aren't the percentage chances. I have only done so much research, but I started doing this at the end of last season. And wide receivers and tight ends do very, very well. And it's common to see all these quarterbacks and running backs owned. Quarterbacks, they do okay, but wide receivers, they get the most, and tight ends they easily get more than the other ones. Running backs and quarterbacks, they'll get their very high fair share. Then after that, the defenses will pull in 2-3% of the time. They will have the best game. And that's one of the two defenses would. And it depends on the team and the defense. And the kickers, man, it looks like 1 in 150 to 200 that they should qualify for the best game. It is, if not even 3 or 4, 500 or higher. It is. You do not play your kicker because to me the mathematics of it is just bad. So anyway, so maybe you have, say, you pick one of the top guys. You have like, okay, I have a 7 in 1 chance of having, say, this player be the best guy. So now the next odds, when you do the parlay, what's the chances that the next player put in is going to be good? And you know what? Let's just put this in decimal form. So we'll do like 0.14% for this. So now player 1, you got next one. Maybe it's a high-end player, sort of like, well, tonight Julian Edelman is an example. The chances Julian Edelman, if he does not succeed as captain, we'll say. So you put somebody else in that's got a 14% chance. So if he doesn't succeed as getting the most points, what's the chances with that player you named getting the most? So we'll just say you put in, say, we'll put in, say, somebody like, say, Tom Brady. He maybe has a 14% chance, we'll say. So now we got Edelman in here. Okay, Edelman, what chances does he have of hitting, say, the top 5 prizes? And you might say it's like 78%. It might even be higher than that because he would be one of the big favorites. And then you put the Pats defense in. And the way they're going right now, they might be amongst a high favorite. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to put this guy, I'm going to put in, say, Le'Veon Bell. Now, sometimes parlays can be bad. So if the Patriots defense is going to have a good game, what's the chances, say, that Le'Veon Bell would as well within the combination? I mean, that might be like only like 12%. And then you put in just this, I never heard of this guy. I mean, he's just some whatever weird player that has never done too much. Maybe it's even 5%. And then you got a whatever kicker that might come into play that might have a 12, maybe a 14% chance of getting in the top five, not in the rank 2 to 6. So I can multiply all of these together. This, I guess you could say, in theory, but no, the theory isn't is not, it's not theory, it's fact. The theory, I would say, in theory, this is what your percentage would be of winning, your odds of winning is this. But the theory is that's what your odds really are. It's fact that you take the odds your captain wins and all of these, you multiply them by each other. Now, if I did 1 divided by this number, the chances that this lineup would be the best lineup would be 24,776. And then you'd have to say, okay, then when you look at your return on investment, when you do the math on this, or how much you would get back, when you're doing a game like this, you would have to think, okay, I want to look at 24,777 situations, knowing I'm going to win one time. What percentage of first place am I going to win? Meaning, how likely is my lineup going to be common? What's my normal first prize going to be? Because that's a big issue when you look at your scoring in the top 3, 4 prizes. Is how much of that do you get? What percentage of it? And then after that, if you're going to play 24,776 times, how many times are you going to get second place, third place, 10th place, 100th place, 1000th place, or whatever it is to cash? Because if, say, you're very confident in $1,500 payout for first, that you're going to get $1,375 long term if you win, because you're probably going to be unique, we'll say. But all the other caches are going to pay this, and that. What would the sum of those caches be? I'm not going to say that because the number could be way off, but assuming it's even say 2,000, I'd be cashing 33.75. I would do it over so many spots, and you'd have to. Those are one ways of looking to see how your advantage would be. Now the way of doing it, if you had the technology know-how and everything, is to simulate a game like that. Any game, the best you can, millions and millions of times over if you can, to get a large sample size of results. And then you see which lineups how they would profit over millions and millions of times. So I'm going to have 1,000 different lineups that I'm going to make, and I want to have a computer simulate over a million times what the likelihood is. Because if you can put those numbers together, is that cheating when you use those stats? Nope, that's being an advantage player. Now, I can't do a lot of that stuff because I don't have the computation to do those numbers. I don't have the computer programming ability to go that hard, that far-fetched and such. But understanding the best is you need to give yourself the most realistic chance of winning, and as well have the most realistic chance of having nobody having the same lineup as you. In fact, the only way somebody has the same lineup as you, if it's somebody like me, we're doing the exact same thing. We're trying to figure out how do we be unique. And when you have games of a lot of people playing, there's going to be enough. Maybe there's thousands and thousands of people trying to do the same little thing. But there's only so many combinations they can do that the most you're ever going to be sharing with is like 1 or 2 other people. Last night I had one lineup, I shared it with one other person. For if we go to the lineup in here, let me just go to the top. This was the winner. POZ 1171 won the prize, having Ezekiel Elliott Amari Cooper as the captain. I believe in wide receivers, tight ends, and defenses are fine too. I don't like to play anyone else other than running backs that pretend to be a receiver. Christian McCaffrey, he's not playing tonight. Okay. Actually, by the way, the running back that pretends to be a receiver tonight that is playing is James White. But anyway, throwing that aside, within the rest of his lineup, he put running back Ezekiel Elliott. So, again, let's do the math. What's the chances that, say, Amari Cooper has the best game? 12, 14%, 16%, and even it looks like Ezekiel Elliott might have. I don't even know if he had the best game, meaning the best lineup may not have won. I haven't even checked to see what the mathematical best lineup is, but continuing on further. So Amari Cooper, maybe it's whatever percent. Now, what's the chances that Ezekiel Elliott hits the top six after that? Pretty high, because just like I was mentioning with someone like Julian Edelman, he's one of the staples that should always get big points. Dak Prescott, relatively high again. And then Cowboys defense. I put them in my lineup. I'm going to show you mine next, but they were my captain actually. That's who I had my captain. Brett Mayer as a kicker. And I was thinking about Dallas Goldberg because you have to do something to be unique, which obviously this person did, leaving about 4,000, 3 to 4,000 off the cap, and going with someone a little less known. But you can see Dallas Goldberg had to be in your lineup to win when he was at the top in every single one of these top lineups. Okay, so you want to find things that go together in parlays. For example, if you're going to play something like a defense's captain, do you really want to play the opposing quarterback or running back too much? Unless it's a catching running back kind of deal. Do you really want to? You want to think if one gets really good, if one's going to be really big, or one's not going to be big, how's that going to reflect the rest of the players? That's just different ways you want to do it. Then doing things to help give yourself the most unique chance of winning it. So let's go to my lineup, and my username is AG47, and I finished in 6,000, well, I don't know why this is like this, but anyway, my lineup had 97, I was copying and pasting, that's why, 97.8 points. And there, if we look above it, there was 97.84 here, one here. But they had Dak. I didn't have Dak Prescott in my lineup. So these two lineups, even though they had the exact same amount of points, is still different than me, which is Sargent and King Connolly. But D. Peters had the exact same lineup as me, which was Cowboys as the captain, the kicker Brett Mayer, Miles Sanders, which is that catching running back, Zach Ertz, Amari Cooper, and Ezekiel Elliott. I left a decent amount off the cap, but obviously, thinking the same way as me was D. Peters. So I work towards getting a lineup that is in to be unique. Sometimes I'll put a lineup in just for fun in a quarter game or whatever, just to see how many people I can predict will share it with me. Like just to literally go common, because I know I'm not going to win, but I can do it in like a 25 or a 10-cent game. So as it came down to last night's lineup, there were 47,521 lineups that were played. 12,359 of them were different. The most common lineups that were played, the most common one was played 201 times, followed by 162, 150, 114, 104, and then 104 three times. 43 different lineups were played 50 to 99 times, 218 were played 25 to 49, 700 between 11 and 24, 123 10 times, and we can see how those numbers keep on going higher. There were a total of 6,380 different lineups that were unique by one person. So there was only 6,380 chances for somebody to get the entire top prize. Now, of those 6,380 lineups, of course, like I mentioned before, with the percentage chances of each one winning, is different. And some of them are just dead lineups. You're putting backup quarterbacks in. You're putting things that just make very little sense. And putting a backup quarterback, you're like saying, "Oh, I'm going to predict that the quarterback's going to get injured," and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I mean this in a realistic way. I mean, look what happened with Patrick Mahomes last week. He got injured. You didn't want to have him in your lineup. Yeah, correct. You didn't. But if you're going to bet on a quarterback to get injured, just don't put him in the lineup, period, and expect that the backup quarterback's going to have a bad game. There's just some lineups I think that just do not make sense. With that being said, though, there have, of course, has been times where a backup quarterback has came in early enough in the game and has had a good game. But then you have to look at the mathematics. Okay, you put him in your lineup. What's the chances that he makes in that top one and how many? It's not good. So that really makes the odds of you winning very, very difficult for it to come into play. Now for tonight's games. We got the Patriots and the Jets. The ownership is going to be heavily skewed towards the Patriots, as it should be. But it's all about trying to find that box score that makes the most sense. Try to find a captain, the best player. Not necessarily the one you think or has the best chance of getting there, but one that has a realistic enough one. Because when you're trying to get these sick payouts, you got to realize, just like that example I put up at the start, with 100 examples of a positive game where you have a very high chance of losing. That's exactly how this game is, which is why I use that example. Where if you play 100 different lineups in here, the chances that you're winning is extremely low because of the very top heavy payouts. Now you can put in a lot of lineups in one game, which just makes it very interesting. So if you put like say 150 lineups in whatever large number you can do, and you do this 3 times a week, maybe you can grind out a profit. And the more statistics and the more you can to put your the advantage on your side, then maybe it can be done. You're already dealing with a rate game near 20%, which is very, very high. The first top game, and I'm sorting this by participants, so it's seated down. The $10 buy game has the largest game of 188,000 people. First place paying out $400,000 and almost 40,000 in total getting paid. When we look at some of the mathematics on it, we can see that if there's 188,000 people, that means the rake is 28 on 16. That's over like 15%. That is extremely high. Almost, I like to say almost criminal, but it is what it is. It's the best way I can put it. It pays $400,000 for first place, which is 1/4 of the prize pool, and there's a very large amount of participants. That last game statistics I gave you was a 40+ thousand game. This is more than 4 times the amount of participants in the game. So it's going to be even a lot more harder to put in unique lineups, and a lot worse on the payouts that you would get if you share with a bunch of people. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm going for 400,000. I end up getting first place and I share with a whole bunch of people. And then you look at how much you get paid, it's like, oh, $3,000. Really? Yeah, that's how the math works. So I call this garbage money when I put this in, and garbage money is I fully expect it to lose on the short-term time frame. But I have a realistic shot of having very good returns on my money. I'm not playing the $10 game instead of my price range for what I want to play. I mean, I can afford it, it's just I really don't want to. I mean, I always lose, so that's why. Like, I mean, when I say I always lose, but I realize I have a realistic shot of winning. The dollar game I'm not playing either. $125,000 prize pool, 6,000 for first place. So we're looking at about 1 in 20 compared to 1 in 4. Satisfactory, I would suppose, but nothing too fantastic. I mean, 1 in 20. I want the higher prize payouts. And within these prize payouts, what's a common entity is that more than 20% of the field pay. So getting min cashes and all that you're going to get a lot of them, but those min cashes are going to lose you long term though. And then on the $3 buy-in, $375,000 prize pool, $50,000 for first place. That's not bad. I was considering that game, but no. $25,000 prize pool in the quarter game, 118,000 participants, $750 for first place. That to me is almost criminal that it's that low, and it's a terrible game because of it. Because, well, 2,500 would be 10%, so 250 would be 1%. That's 3% of the field. 1 in 33. No, I don't even want to touch that game. I'm playing the 50-cent game because it's 1 in 10. 4,000. I'm happy to win $4,000 if that's what I get. 95,000 participants. And then the 10-cent game, $500 for that, the $5 game, and then the $1 game. And again, you're trying to get as many of those lineups that you can get in to be unique and realistic to win. So if you're playing guys of high ownerships, the big captains, the Julian Edelmans, the Tom Bradys, the Sony Michels, all of those top guys, You gotta, and the New England defense for that matter now, because the New England Giants game the last time was like a major. I mean, the Giants defense was only like 30% as captain in the game that I played, and the number one chosen. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots defense is the number one again tonight. It probably should go Patriots defense first. It's between them and Tom Brady, I would think, at 1 and 2. And then we're going to look at probably Julian Edelman and Sony Michel, because running backs are picked too much. Sony Michel and Julian Edelman. And then maybe you're going to get Sam Darnold and then one of his receivers, and then maybe Le'Veon Bell after that. And then maybe James White. And you got also Philip Dorsett. And those are the guys that are going to be picked. But if you're going to be picking those high guys, maybe leaving 3, 4, 5,000 off the cap. But another way I like to do it is when I think of a game, I look at a situation. Think of how the box score is going to go. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what happens tonight if, say, well, the Patriots defense dominates? So how's the game going to look? So Patriots defense captain. How am I going to do my 5 other guys? Well, I realize, again, if the Patriots defense does good, it's probably going to be bad for Sam Darnold. He's probably going to throw interceptions. He's going to have a low QB rating. Maybe have a hard time getting around that 200 passing yard number. Probably not get anywhere more than 2 touchdowns, if even that. It's just not going to be a good time, so he's not going to do well. If the Patriots defense is going to win as captain, their players are probably going to have to do what they've been doing all season long. And that is find a way to get in the end zone, get all of these sacks and all of this type of stuff. That it makes sense to me that if the Patriots are going to be able to do this, they are going to be crushing them in score. And if that's the case, then they're going to effectively want to run the ball. That's where Sony Michel comes into play. And also, we know that we want to take the safe points. Most likely, Julian Edelman is going to get his fair share of catches, and the odds he doesn't make the top 6 is just so rare. Okay, so now the mathematical odds that happens, as well as, say, James White getting a few share of catches along the way, or Brian Bolden. There's another one. Might get a few catches. Also, he's going to get run garbage time at the very end. Now you need 2 more guys, and you need someone from the Jets. So now what you got to do is you got to find 2 guys that could realistically make it in the box score. Make sure that it's not so obvious you leave 400 or 800 or perfect cap left space. And, oh, you look later, oh, I was shared with 85 other people. Well, there you go. But if you could think of another way, maybe there's this weird guy that hasn't played much, one of the backup tight ends, wide receivers on the Jets. Who's going to get the best points for the Jets? Well, I don't. Maybe the defense. That's really interesting. Playing both defenses. Maybe it could be a bit unique. Maybe they can score a pick 6 themselves. Sack. I mean, Brady's going to be tough to sack, but he's been throwing interceptions. Find whichever key receiver or tight end that just might happen to get into a game on any given day. Some sort of realistic tight end can come in, but the chances Le'Veon Bell has a decent game and he's going to be heavily cost is bad if the Patriots are going to do this type of stuff. Tom Brady's going to be heavily owned. He's going to cost more. He's going to hurt towards you having a ownership, a unique lineup. And you realize if the Patriots defense has a dominating game and they're effectively able to run the ball, the chances that Tom Brady runs for a touchdown and has a big game is bad. So I'm going to maybe not want to put him in the lineup doing things to help me get myself a unique lineup. I'm not going to tell you my 2 other players, but these are how I started my lineup. And then I put 2 other guys in there from that point on. I will let you know tomorrow how many people in this game I shared my lineups, the other statistics again. The winning lineup, I'm going to talk about the winning lineup, how much it got, at least in the 50-cent game because that's the one I'm playing. And whatever little things I can, the ownerships and the statistics that I showed before as well. Thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.